Hey, it's Marie Forleo, and you are watching Marie TV, the place to be to create a business and life you love. And I am so excited, I can barely contain myself because today's guest is someone that I've admired for so long. He's impacted tens of millions of lives all around the world, and he's written an incredible new book, which we're going to talk about today. Tony Robbins is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. For more than 37 years, millions of people have enjoyed the warmth, humor, and the transformational power of Mr. Robbins' business and personal development events. He's the nation's #1 life and business strategist. He's called upon to consult and coach with some of the world's finest athletes, entertainers, Fortune 500 CEOs, and even presidents of nations. Robbins is a founder of or partner in more than a dozen companies in industries as diverse as a 5-star island resort in Fiji to custom 3D printed prosthetic limbs. Through the Anthony Robbins Foundation and his matching funds, Tony feeds 4 million people per year in 56 countries. He's also initiated programs in more than 1,500 schools, 700 prisons, and 50,000 service organizations and shelters. He lives in Palm Beach, Florida. Tony, it is so amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
So I think I told you this way back when you interviewed me for the New Money Masters. You know, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. When I was in my early 20s, I went to Unleash the Power Within.
Yes.
And you made such an impact on me, and it's influenced everything I've done personally and everything in my business. And I just want you to hear like who you are, what you do, how you serve. It makes such a huge difference, and it means the world to me to have you here today.
Oh, that is so sweet of you.
So
thank you for that.
Let's get started, because one of the things I admire so much about you is your energy and your passion and your stamina. I mean, you've been doing this for over 3 decades, and I know everybody watching
Actually getting closer to 4
which is awesome. It's so incredible.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I so admire is I feel like you keep getting better. You keep doing more. You keep serving on a higher level. And from a personal, just stamina standpoint, tell us a little bit about what you do every day. What are your habits? How do you keep yourself at this high level of service?
Well, I think there's the physical side of it, which, I do the equivalent of an ultra marathon every weekend. I do 52 hours. On the last day, I do 26.5 miles. The previous day, 22 miles. So just the physical side, you have to be in incredible shape. And I'm in better shape physically today, both my endurance, my muscular strength, and so forth, than when I was 25, which is wonderful. And so I do certain things for that. But I think I should mention first, what's even more important is the psychological, spiritual side of things, because I think energy comes first, not from your body. It doesn't come from eating. It doesn't come from sleeping, because I've gone without those things for long periods of time and still been able to deliver. It comes from having a mission. It comes from something that you're being pulled by, not something you're pushing on. Those are 2 forms of motivation. You can push yourself to do things, and there's only so much you can push yourself to do. But if you're pulled, if there's something that you want to serve that's greater than yourself, there's something that excites you, if there's something that you're about, something you're made for, then there's a level of energy that most people would never dream of. And we all have that, but most of us don't connect to it and unleash it. So every day I connect and unleash that every single day. I don't hope it's going to be there, even though I know it will be, even though it's there. I don't take it for granted. And so I start out with my day by a process I do called priming. And what priming is, it's not a meditation, but it has meditative qualities. And what I do is I sit down. The first thing I do in the morning, I go and I jump in a hot tub or a hot water type of experience, and then I go to a freezing water. All my homes, I'm fortunate enough to have multiple homes, that I go, one of them have a river I get to jump in. You've been there.
Yeah.
There are other places I have these cold plunges. And I do that to train my nervous system to go from 0 to 60 like that. Every muscle, every nerve in your body, every organ gets, when you hit 57-degree water, it hits. And so it's just my mental discipline. Then the second thing I do is I prime. And priming is I sit down and I do a minimum of 10 minutes, because my mindset is, if you don't have 10 minutes, you don't have a life.
Right.
So there's no excuse. So every day, sit down, and what do? I do 3.5 minutes where I do an explosive breathing pattern, a pattern that changes my biochemistry. And after I've done that, 30 of these intense breaths 3 times, I close my eyes and I'm kind of in an altered state, and I focus first for 3.5 minutes on just everything in my life, at least 3 things that I'm really, truly grateful for. And I don't do that in a hokey way. I don't do it in a mental way. I step into my body and feel it, and I make sure at least one of those things is something really simple. The wind against my skin, the look on my son's eyes or daughter's eyes, something that is just very fundamental, but I really I cultivate that feeling of gratitude, of appreciation for those feelings. And I do it for 3.5 minutes. Then I do 3.5 minutes where I do this process of focusing on healing, strengthening, and serving. And I start in a circle, starting with myself, and then I go through all the people in my life and associates, and I just send love to them. Again, it may sound corny, but to me, it's a part of what I'm here for, and it's a part of cultivating that energy, that healing and strength energy, and strengthening my passion, my appreciation, my insights, my capacity, my endurance. And then I do the last 3 minutes are what I call 3 to Thrive, which is what is it that I really want to make happen? And sometimes I do that over what I'm going to do for the next 6 months or month, and sometimes it's today. I shake it up. But I see and feel and own that those things are done. And that starts, pretty much my day between those 2 items. And, then I have my workouts and things that I do of that nature.
Yeah. And how about eating wise? Has that changed for you a lot over the years?
It's pretty simplistic. I'm very simple. I eat a salad and I have some protein. I have fish or I'll have turkey bacon. I don't eat red meat or chicken, but those are the things that I have usually in the morning, and my afternoon, evening meals are pretty simple as well. But, before I met my wife, Sage, she's been the greatest gift of my life. When we first met, she's a phlebotomist and a nutritionist and acupuncturist, so I thought this is going to be the easiest thing in the world. And I'll never forget, we went on this date and she had a wheatgrass juice, and I was like, wow, this is going to be so easy, man. This is awesome. And then she ordered a hot fudge sundae, and I was like, what in the hell are you doing? And she goes, eating, you bastard. I should give some term around bastard that I was like too rules driven. And so she had this whole thing, you zig and then you zag. So I do that with her now. I do enjoy other aspects of life, but when I first met her, I noticed she zigged a lot more than she zagged, or the other way around, I don't know which one it was, but it's been a nice balance in my life. So I enjoy food and things of that nature, but I use food mostly as fuel because life gives me so much juice. I'm not looking to get out of food usually.
And how about, because I know for me, my mind can go and I have so much excitement and so much passion that at night, sometimes winding down. Do you have a wind down process?
My wife would say no. I say yes, she would say no. My wife loves sleep. My wife can sleep 8 hours. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. To me, it's like sleep when you die. So that was one of the first things in our relationship that was a bit challenging, because I'd want to get up and just go. I'll never forget, we were in Fiji, and it's like, even there, we're supposed to be on vacation, it's our home. I'd jump up at 6 in the morning, and she's like, where the hell are you going? I go, start my day, run up the mountain, do it. She goes, get in bed, I'll show you how to start your day. It's like, okay, now that's a better way to start my day.
Totally.
But now what I've done is I get in bed with her, because she's a lady. If you get up in the middle of the night, where are you going? China. Where do you think I'm going? It's 3 in the morning. I'm going to the bathroom, So I've learned to get my work done in bed beside her, and then she goes to sleep. But I watch silly movies. I watch things to let my brain disappear. Reading does not slow me down, because then I start incorporating and using it. My mind goes crazy. I'm underlining everything. But I'll watch cartoon type movies like Family Guy or something to knock my brain out, quite frankly. Or I'll watch some silly series, I don't know. I'm thinking of now the different ones. What is it? Revenge or something of that nature. Something that my brain can just truly let go, and that's how I do it for the most part.
Awesome. So, you've worked with presidents. You worked with people like Serena Williams and, one of the greatest investors in the world, Paul Tudor Jones. When you're called in to work with these incredible folks, how do you start to prepare yourself? Like, what are the questions that you ask to start to go in to serve at that level?
Well, they're different for everybody, obviously, but what I try to do, if I was trying to look at it from a universal perspective, I guess what I really want to know before I get there as much as I can is everything I can about the person. And I do that because I really want to know, what do they want? What do they want of their life? What's their mission? What are they after? And what do they fear? What are their concerns? Because I believe life is found in the dance between what you desire most and what you fear most. And if I know those two edges of a person, I know a lot. And then I dig under and try to learn as much as I can from other people about whatever the challenge may be. And then I go prepared to just learn from the person directly. But I want to know as much as I can before I go in there. Then I take all that I think I know, and then I see what's really real when I meet them. And I'm digging in to discover what's the challenge, what do they perceive it is. And usually, if I were to grossly generalize, if you're going to help somebody create a breakthrough, it all comes down to 3 areas. Either they've altered their strategy. We all have strategies, a specific way of succeeding, and sometimes we alter it, whether it be in sports or whether it be in finance or any other area. We forget something, we lose a little edge, we drop something out, and then it becomes a bad habit. Or sometimes it's a change in our beliefs. Like, you may have done something for decades and been really successful, but now I know one gentleman who's a good friend of mine that, had 52 Academy Award nominations, and he said to me one day, he said, if I make one more freaking movie, I'll kill myself. He's just like, I don't want to make a movie, I don't want an Academy Award, I don't want any of these things, and it's just like he's satiated. And so sometimes when people get satiated, they lose their hunger, they shift their beliefs, and when you change a belief, you change your biochemistry. When you change your belief, you change the way you execute, you change everything. And we all develop as stories. And sometimes stories are empowering and sometimes the mental stories are disempowering. So I'm listening for those, I'm digging for those. And then I also look at their state. Because you could do the same exact action from a place of being pissed off or from a place of playfulness, and the same action's not going to get you the same result. And so I'm looking for that quality of what's going on in them. And then I look and try to find out what it was like before. So with Paul Tudor Jones, I went back and I watched videos of him when he was at his best. And I saw how he used his body and the way he moved, and I saw him now sitting still and kind of slumped over, and he'd broken his leg, and he had talked at a different tempo. So I look at biochemically what's happening, physiologically, I look at psychologically what's going on, and then I look at structurally what they're doing. And then I develop a plan to help them get back to where they were and beyond, to better performance than they had before.
Incredible. The other thing that I was fascinated I wanted to ask you so bad, you probably accomplish more than most people do in, I don't even know a time frame. And of course, you get to talk with people who are at the highest level of their game. When it comes to productivity, what do top performers know that a lot of people just don't? What are we missing?
Well, I think the best performers are focused on outcomes and not activities. If you try to manage your to-do list in the world we live in today, where most of us have multiple roles, we're trying to be a great business person, a great husband or wife, great father, great community member, or whatever, there's just so many roles, you can never get all your to-dos done. And what helped me in my life was I started at one point saying, I'm not gonna let myself fail every day. I'm not gonna pick a to-do list, and I'm not gonna not write a list so that I don't fail. I need to focus on what matters most. I needed to organize my life into categories where I say, these are the most important outcomes, and then I know why I'm gonna do it. If you know what you really want, the target, and you know why, you have the focus and you have the fuel, then how to get there, there's so many ways to get there. And then the most important thing I think that the most productive people do is we leverage what we do. We don't delegate. Delegation is I give it to you, and then when it doesn't work out, I'm pissed at you. Leverage is I empower you. If I'm leveraged, I'm still part of that, and I'm gonna make sure you succeed. I'm gonna follow up. I'm gonna make sure before the deadline I touch base with you. I'm gonna make sure you have the resources to succeed. But what I do is empower people, go, here's the outcome, here's the why. I get you and I aligned with the outcome and the why. You figure out how you wanna do it. I'm open. You want brainstorm with me, I'll do it. You'll probably come up with better ideas than I do. And when you empower people to come up with their own how, and they know what and why, you can get the job done 100 times faster, especially if you get a group of people. I'm a big believer that early in my life, I thought I was such a smart person. I'm gonna solve all this stuff. Part of it was being responsible, and part of it is ego that we all have inside ourselves if we've succeeded to a certain extent. I said, this is bullshit. You know what? Instead of one person solving 12 problems, I want 12 people to solve one problem. And I developed that practice, and I began to find that people that many people thought weren't gonna contribute had insights nobody else had. I really got it from Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn's a dear friend of mine, and he's rebuilt Las Vegas, one of those brilliant men I know, multi-billionaire. And Steve really learns the most from the bellmen, from the people that would never make it into the C-suite. He learns what customers are feeling, what they're experiencing, how to have an impact, what needs to be changed, because these people are on the front lines. So I'm a big believer that you need leverage. And if you're just starting out in business, I know a lot of people that were probably watching your shows are watching you because you're a successful businesswoman who's built your own entrepreneurship, you've done so many great things. I think in the very beginning, the hard thing is you think you can only do it yourself, and then there's only so many hours, and you've got kids and family and friends, and how do I do it all? The answer is you hire someone. You trade with someone. You trade them for 2 hours. That's what I did in the beginning. Because I'll never forget, I was just really young in my career, very in the early days, and I was running to get to the dry cleaners so I could get my only 2 suits. Because if I didn't get them, then the place closes, then I can't get on the plane, and running to the airport, sweating like crazy. I'm a sweater anyway. Right? It's like sweating like this, trying to get in the door, and it's like, what is wrong with this picture? I could be doing something that's so productive, and I'm standing in line at the dry cleaning place. And this is just nuts. And so I was really young, I was like 17, 18, 19, I don't know what it was. And I said, I'm gonna hire somebody. 2 hours a day, that's what I had to start with. And then it was 4 hours. And so my view is I don't do anything that someone else can do better, and I don't do anything that isn't the highest and best use of my time. Now, when I say that, that's gross generalization. There are things I still will do. But for the most part, by finding people and getting clear on outcomes and the why, what I call RPM, you gotta know the result, You got to know the purpose, and then you got to have a massive action plan. And the plan can change. But that RPM, the stronger the RPMs, the faster that car is going to move. And I try to do that not just through myself, but through other people.
Beautiful. So last thing I want to talk about before we dive into the monster book, which I can't wait to get to, is this idea of slumps. I know a lot of times you're called in when someone's, either hit a plateau or they're having a tough time. So 2 questions. A lot of folks that write in, they'll ask me questions or they'll just comment on the blog and they find themselves in a tough spot. Maybe they've experienced a certain level of success and like you said with your friend, Peter, it's just like, I don't want this anymore. I don't know what I want next. Any common patterns or things that you can share about slumps and how we can support ourselves to get out of them?
Well, most people hit plateaus, and the most important thing when you hit a plateau is not to be pissed off and stressed out about it because stress won't make it better. It's also not to take it lightly and go, oh my God, this doesn't matter. It's that delicate balance where you say, okay, how do I get from where I am to where I really want to be? And if you don't put the emotional charge on it, it's easier, but that's easier to say and harder to do. The pattern I see in slumps, whether it be an athlete or a financial trader or an actor or any of that nature, is number one thing that causes a slump usually is you get too comfortable. When you start doing something and you're really successful, a lot of people lose their hunger. And if you ask me, what is the single most important element of any human being that separates their level of success from the rest of the world? It's hunger. It isn't intelligence, as valuable as that is. There are people that are incredibly intelligent, can't fight their way out of a paper bag. You show me somebody who's not only hungry but doesn't lose their hunger, they will dominate everything. And you see that in the greatest sports stars, the greatest entertainers, the ones that they're insatiable. And because of that, you like being around them because there's this energy about them, this passion about them, and very few people maintain that. And you lose your hunger, you go into a slump. You get overconfident. Another pattern that happens that gives people a slump is when something changes in their world that they're not prepared for. Like, I've been doing this forever and oh my God, now my relationship's messed up. Or, I've been working hard and being a lawyer and now my wife's upset, her husband's upset with me. What do I got to do here? And what it does is it throws people off their rhythm. And so I try to figure out what's happening in their environment and show them how they can win in both categories simultaneously. A third one is when people do something where they get mad at themselves, kind of like a Tiger Woods, and then he's got all the skill in the world, nothing changed in his skill, but for that year and a half or whatever it was, he was beating himself up, and in that state, it's kind of a self-sabotage. And so depending on what form I find, I enter in and make the changes, and there are almost always changes again in the psychology of that person, the emotion of that person, because we have these great minds. Everybody's got a great mind, or at least available great mind. But we're emotional creatures. And we forget that because we live in a society that tries to value thought much more than emotion because emotion is scary for us. Emotion can come really fast. And so some people try to avoid it at all costs. Other people are overwhelmed by it. My view is that emotional intelligence is a wonderful thing, but I much prefer emotional fitness. Intelligence is a capability. Fitness is a state of readiness. And what I do is I train myself to always be ready, and that makes you execute. And I think too many people settle for, I know this, as opposed to I'm doing this. And I try to train myself and others to be in that state of readiness all the time, because that's where life is really fulfilled at the highest level, I think.
I do too, agree 100%. So let's move on to this monster book, which it is a monster in the best way. It's the most beautiful thing. So do we have a copy that we can kind of bring in? I just want to hold this thing up because it is so awesome. So Tony, I got the galley from your team, which it's like, all right, y'all, you're seeing it right here. We're going to talk about this now. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that every human being needs to get this book. They need to read it for their family, for their friends, and most importantly, the last couple chapters about service. I was in tears. I loved every bit of it. My copy is highlighted cover to cover. I've already taken action on a lot that's in the book.
Yes.
This is your first book in 20 years.
Yes.
Why this topic? Why now? And what makes it different than all the other money books that are out there?
Well, one reason I haven't written a book is I hate writing. Just being honest. I'm on a plane about every 4 or 5 days. I go to 15 countries. I see 250,000 people a year. I love the live event. I love the spontaneity. You get to do something new constantly. You get to see what's really going on with a human being. And writing is an isolated, by yourself process that God bless the people that do that stuff. But I got pushed over the edge because there's only a few subjects in life that really affect the quality of your life, right? There's your body. There's clearly your relationships, your emotions, and money is one of those places. And I've shared with people a lot about this, and I grew up with in a very tough environment financially. We had no money. There were times, our car was repossessed. There were times we had no food. So, and it didn't last, but it was one of those places where you had that uncertainty all the time. And so when 2008 happened, That's what pushed me over the edge. Because when I started seeing so many people losing their homes, losing half of what they saved for their whole life, and then I kept thinking, well, the government's going to do something because this is a raw, horrific situation that's been brought about by a small number of people. By 2010, when nothing had been done, I was mad, and I was reading every article, I was watching every documentary, and the final one that just pushed me over the edge was called Inside Job. I don't know if you saw it, but
I have it ordered on Netflix.
okay, yes,
yeah.
it's Academy Award, won the Academy Award. Matt Damon did the voiceover, but what's amazing is they systematically showed who specifically virtually destroyed the world economy, and then showed that the punishment they got is not only all of us bailing them out, but they were put in charge of turning the economy back around and giving more money to do this thing again. So at the end of this film, you understand what happened, but you have one or two emotional responses depending upon your personality. Either you want to kill somebody, you're so angry, or you're depressed because there wasn't one solution to the whole thing. It's a beautiful documentary, but not one solution. I'm a solution guy, so I was like, something's got to be done. I know I'm not the only solution, but I have a unique gift. I have access. Because most people don't know, they think of me as the motivational, positive thinking guy. That's never what I've been. I've been a strategist my whole life, and Paul Tudor Jones, one of the top 10 traders in the history of the world, has been my client for 21 years. Literally every single day, he emails me, I measure him a variety of things, I see him face to face. I've been with him side by side in the tech crash in 2000, in 9/11, when he went through the subprime crisis, 2008, fall in gold, and he's made money every single year for 21 years. And even beyond me, his firm has made money for 28 years. So it isn't just me, it's Paul. And I've learned from him so much over those decades. And I just thought, if I didn't just interview him, what if I interviewed 50 of the most brilliant financial minds that in the history of the world that are alive today? Let me interview them. Let me find out, can the average person really still win? And if so, how? Let me get, not some talking head on television telling you the same BS about go put your money in some 12% per annum mutual fund that's never existed for 10, 15 years, but the truth. And so I began this 4-year journey, and I was blown away. My average interview was scheduled for 45 minutes. They went 3 hours, some of them 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And people became incredibly generous in what they shared. And they shared things that they've never shared before. And I put them into a 7-step process so that whether you're a millennial that just got out of college and got a bunch of college debt saying, how will I ever get around this? I'll show you how to get financially free. You're a baby boomer and you lost a bunch of money in 2008 and you didn't get back in the market. I'll show you what you can do. You're a very sophisticated investor and you want to know what Ray Dalio does that it's never been revealed about, I'll show you what he does. And so I'm real proud of it. And that, you've seen the level of endorsement I have from the highest level of people in finance on the earth is pretty extraordinary. It's because it's really their work, it's not mine.
I had so much fun reading it, and honestly, I was intimidated by a 600+ book because I knew we were doing this interview, and I prepare as much as I humanly. I'm like, all right, I'm going to speed read, but digest everything.
Yes.
And one of the things in the beginning, when you start breaking down the myths,
yes,
I just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker with how much the general public, how much people don't know and how they're taking advantage of. So I wanted to ask you, was there one in particular that just totally pissed you off? There was a ton. I know there's 9 myths in the book.
I put the 9 most abusive ones in there. I mean, they're there. Here's what I'd say. I want to mention one of the myths, though, to start with. Not a myth, but a step. I want everybody who's watching to remember one thing. The biggest myth you have, not the one that's been sold to you, that hurts you is the average person thinks finance is so complex because, frankly, the industry tries to make it sound complex. They use words that you don't know, so you don't know what to do. What does this mean? And so what happens is we just give them our money and say, deal with it, and we don't realize that system has been set up. It's not an evil system. It's set up by corporations that are looking to maximize profit for those corporations. They're not looking out for the investor because this investor is second, and we think we're first, and we're not. So the first piece is you've got to know that you can't wait till you have a ton of money to start investing and think, I'm not an investor. What you got to do is say, rather than my Apple phone, let me own Apple stock. Let me own a piece of all the best companies, not just Apple. I've got to become an owner or I'll always be in scarcity. If you can invest in business, even a small amount, you can grow. And I don't care how small it is, but you got to automate it. There's a gentleman named Theodore Johnson who is amazing. He worked for UPS, started as a driver, never made more than $14,000 total in a year. That was his highest salary in a year. In his old age, he's worth $70 million. And how did he do it? All he did was what I teach is the first step is you gotta take a percentage of what you earn and pretend it's a tax. You're never gonna see that money again. You automate it, it goes straight to the investment account, and you never see it as money you can spend. He did that with 20%. He said, I can't save 5. Somebody in his family said, if there was a tax, you'd pay it, and they made it 20%. When you save 20% and you compound it, its numbers are incredible. So I show people how to do that. But then the problem is, if you do that first step, but you don't do the second step, which is become an insider,
yes,
and understand the rules of the game, then the old adage is a person with money meets a person with experience. The person with experience ends up with your money. I mean, that's how it works. So I'll give you 2 or 3 of the myths real fast. One, this myth that someone says, give me your money and I'm gonna beat the market. It's just a lie. Warren Buffett made it clear it's a lie. Ray Dalio, one of the greatest investors in history. David Swenson, who has taken Yale's money, $1 billion, and converted it to $24 billion in 2 decades, the greatest institutional investor in the world. They've all said it. Warren Buffett flat out said today, he said, listen, in my will, 90% of my money, all that money does not go with any mutual fund, it goes straight into the index. What the index is you get a piece of all the largest companies in the world, but it costs almost nothing to get in. Because over any 10-year period of time, 96% of mutual funds will not even match the market. Now you're paying for a mutual fund. What this means is you hire someone because you say, I have a family, I have a business, I have a life. I'm not an investor. I'm gonna hire someone who's a professional. It makes sense they would do better than me. Unfortunately, that's wrong. Because what happens is 4% of them will beat the market, but it's not the same 4%. Mm-hmm. So your chances of finding the right one, have you ever played blackjack?
Yes.
So if you play blackjack, everybody knows you play for 21. If you go above 21, you're gone. If you get 2 face cards and they're sitting in front of you and you got a 20 out of 21, and you got the chance to stay or say hit me, if you hit you, there's only one card that'll get you to the other, it's an ace. If your inner idiot says hit me, you have an 8% chance of winning. You have a 4% chance of finding the right mutual fund. It's not gonna happen. So what happens for people is they think they've been sold, we're gonna do better, and they might for a year or 2, but what matters, you live off the long term. You don't live off the year or 2, and they just don't do it. Warren Buffett has a bet right now with Protege Partners, which is a group that does hedge funds, and he said, you can pick 5 hedge funds. You can mold the best of them together. I'm gonna own the market, which costs me next to nothing. You're gonna get the hedge funds, which cost a lot. 10-year bet, who's gonna win? Put up $1 million. Right now, they're 6 years into it. Warren Buffett's at 42%, they're at 12%, right?
Oh.
Just crazy. So the second thing is after getting terrible performance, people say, well, fees don't really matter, or they'll tell you it's only 1%. And I ask people all the time, how much are you paying? And they go, I don't know, or they'll say 1%. 1% is called the expense ratio. That's like the edge of the sticker price. If you read that 50-page prospectus in your mutual fund, even one of them has 50 pages, which you won't, you'd have a hard time with a PhD figuring it out. In fact, there's a man named Hilton Smith, I quote in the book, who spent 2 weeks, he's got a doctorate as an economist, took him 2 weeks to go through them all and figure out there are 17 different fees. And Forbes says the average fee is 3.12. Now, if you're watching right now, I'm sure I've lost your brain with all these numbers, so let me make it real for you. 1% versus 3%, big difference.
Huge.
Right? Here's the difference. Just like you grow by compounding like Theodore Johnson did, your fees also compound. And people don't know that when they hear that little number. So if you have 3 people and the one gets 1% in fees, 2%, the other 3%, they all get the same return. They start out with $100,000 at 35. For 30 years, they accumulate to 65 years old, 7% compounded, they all get 7%. The only difference is the fees. And when they go to retire, the person at 1% in fees is gonna have $574,000. $100,000 to 574, not a bad, if they added not another dime, pretty amazing. The person at 3% in fees will have $224,000. 77% less money. If you want to win a race and you have a 100-pound jockey on the back of your horse or you want a 300-pound jockey on the back of your horse, fees at 3% are that. If I said to you, here's a deal, let's do an investment, and here's how I want it to work. You give me the money, you put up all the money, you put up all the risk, I'll put up no money, I'll put up no risk. If you lose, I win, and if you win, I win. And if you win, over the life of the time, I'll get 60% of what you earn. You'd say, I'll never do that in a million years. That's a mutual fund with 3%. It's one of the only industries on earth where they've confused this enough that we don't understand we're overpaying by thousands of percent. You could own the stock market, the S&P 500. You can own a piece of all 500 big companies through like the Vanguard 500. Mm-hmm. And you get the best of all the business, Apple, Exxon, all these companies. And it costs you 0.17. That means less than 0.2%. If you went to a normal mutual fund, you might own the same companies for 3.17. That's like buying a Honda Accord for $20,000 or $350,000 for the same car. If you pay $350,000, you figure out the person next door paid $20,000, so you go crazy. That happens every day with finances because people don't know how to look at this. So when they read the book, that'll never happen to them again.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, there's so much. I could talk to you forever, and I know your team is like, oh my God, we got to get him out of here. But a couple things before we wrap up. First, what we discovered with the all-season strategy and what you were able to inspire Ray, one of the leader of what? The largest hedge fund in the world.
Yes.
It's absolutely incredible.
He's an amazing man. Let me just give it to you really quick. Ray Dalio is his name. Ray has Bridgewater, which is the largest hedge fund in the world. A hedge fund is where wealthy people often put their money because they can bet up on the market or down. They'll be able to do a lot of things as a hedge fund. And a large hedge fund, a good size one might be 15 billion, Ray's 160 billion, so he's 10 times the size. To give money to Ray 10 years ago, you had to have a $5 billion net worth and a minimum of 100 million on the first day, or he wouldn't even talk to you. That was 10 years ago. Now, no matter how much money you have, you won't do it because he manages money for China, for countries, for giant pension funds. So I get a chance to meet Ray, and I did 15 hours of prep for that. Just like I want to be all pitch and catch with him. I was very fortunate, found out that he'd listened to my tapes and was a fan of my work from years before. And so our 45 minutes went close to that 3-hour mark again. And at the end, I said to him, went back and forth, and he really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it, obviously, learned so much. I said, Ray, I asked this to all these people, if you could never give any of your money to your children, and all you could give them was be a strategy, a plan, a portfolio that they could not only succeed with, but they wouldn't have all that ups and downs that make people get out of the market and lose. I said, what would it be? And he said, my all-weather portfolio. I've already designed it. All my money's in it. My kids' money, all the money that I have for contribution to society is in it. And he said, because I know I'm not going to be here forever, and I need something that's going to work in any market. And he said, I've worked it all the way back to 1925. I've tested it, and it makes money. And he said, I did it for myself for years, and now I do it for my clients. I said, explain it to me. So he explained it to me, and I'd done my homework. I knew a lot about it already. But at the end, I said, okay, Ray, you've really explained this. Brilliant. You're showing me why in 2008, people that had half their money in stocks and they thought they were safe, half their money in bonds, like everybody tells you a balanced portfolio, they both lost money. He explained why. He explained how you could avoid that. But I said, Ray, you told me everything but the percentages. So it's like, bake this perfect chocolate cake. And he says, bring some chocolate, bring some sugar, use some dairy products, but you're not telling me the amounts. I said, he goes, Tony, that's my secret sauce. And they give me the whole 5 billion, 100 million. I go, I know, but you said you haven't taken money in 10 years. You're not going to take any money. The average person can't do it on their own. Help the average guy out. And I was teasing him, pushing him. And he goes, well, it's complex. I said, but I'll simplify it. He goes, well, there's leverage. I said, design one without leverage. The average person can do 15 minutes a year. And he goes, well, it wouldn't be perfect. I said, your idea of not perfect will be better than anybody else on earth.
Totally.
So he sits there and he starts scratching this thing out for me. And I'm like feeling this vibration in my body. It was just incredible. At the end, it was incredibly generous. We went and tested it, back tested it. So that means you compare it year by year what it did. In reality, not hoping what it do, but back testing something for a year or 2 years or 5 years, one thing. We back tested it 75 years, the worst and the most volatile times in our history. And interestingly enough, it's right, 85% of the time it made money. And the few times it didn't, the average loss was 1.6%. The largest loss in 75 years was less than 4%, minus 3.5. And that was 2008 when the market from top to bottom was down 51%. And that's the most loss in 75 years, and the average return is just under 10%. And this is something, a bunch of my friends were like, bake this into a business, dude. This is like incredible. And I was like, you know what? I'd love to do that, but this was given in the spirit of free to anybody.
Yes.
So it's there. Somebody can go to the library and get my book and they can just copy the thing down. But it's available to any human being and anybody can put it there. Now, that's not the only strategy there. I have David Swenson's strategies. I have all the best.
Tons.
But his strategy is the smoothest ride. Because the biggest challenge, if you look at the last 30 years or 20 years, 1993 to 2003, the average investor in mutual funds, well, the market did 9.2% per year, really nice, on average. The average mutual fund investor did 2.5%, and that's before taxes. You're going to double your money every 36 years doing something like that. It's just,
Getting
it's
killed.
not going to happen. You get killed.
Okay. As we wrap, so you're not earning a dime off of this book.
No.
So tell us all about your passion for making a difference and what happens each and every time someone purchases a copy of this incredible thing, which everyone needs to get.
I'm really proud. I didn't start out to do that, quite frankly, but I was writing the book, and as I mentioned, when I was a kid, we had a Thanksgiving, no money and no food, and somebody came to the door, knocked on the door, and delivered this food, and it was life-changing for me because it wasn't the food, it was that my father had always said, nobody cares about anybody else, you know. He built that belief system into us, and I saw that strangers really care. And so I swore someday I'd do something to give back. So when I was 17, I fed 2 families, and the next year, 4 families, the next 8. I didn't tell anybody, but after the 3rd, 4th year, I was like, I could use some help. So I got my friends involved, and then my companies, and then it built to 1 million people, and then 2 million people. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've been matching the 2 million my foundation does personally with another 2 million, so we feed 4 million people a year. But while I was writing this, Congress last year passed a new budget that nobody seemed to pay attention to, where they cut food stamps, they don't call it food stamps anymore, but it's food stamps, by $8.7 billion. It basically eliminated 2 million people from having food. And so I work with all these nonprofit organizations that are already struggling, and it just made me crazy. And I thought, okay, what if I'm working my ass off in this book, but you know what? I could donate all the profits of this book, not a percentage. And then I thought, what if I donate all in advance? Whether I make money in the book doesn't matter. I'm going to do it in advance. How many people could I feed? And it was 10 million. And I was like, wow, that excited me. And it just grew a life of its own. As time went by, I started thinking, how could I really get people's attention about it? And so I finally decided that I'm going to feed 50 million. I'm writing the check actually next week. Personally, I'm going to feed 50 million people up front. And in addition to that, I'm working with Feeding America. They're the best hunger relief organization in the United States. And they're going to partner with me to get matching funds so we can feed 100 million people. And it's just exciting. I've fed 42 million people in my life. I'm going to feed more people this year. And so for anybody who gets a book, you know, if I sell 1 million books, 50 meals for every person that's there. If I sell 100 books, it'll be 500,000 meals for that's there. But it doesn't matter. I've done it up front. And I'm not doing it because I'm a good guy. I'm just paying it forward. People forget what a little bit of caring can do for, you know, to inspire or to move somebody. And I don't even know to this day who fed my family that day. But if they're out there, if they're still alive, I hope they see and hear the story and know what's going on. My guess is they passed because I've shared the story many times and no one's volunteered to share what it is. But that person made a giant difference. It wasn't just feeding, it was caring. And that's what I think changes people's lives.
I think that's the thing that I so admire about you. I've been to so many of your events. I will continue to be a supporter, a fan, a friend.
Thank you.
I think you're one of the most incredible human beings in the world, and your heart and your soul shows through in everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're very sweet.
so much for being here. And for everybody, you have got to get your hands on this book. We're going to have links below. We're going to be tweeting and sharing about it. It will change your life, the life of your family. And like I said at the end, there's a beautiful piece about why it's so important for all of us to make a difference. Tony, thank you so much. I love you. I think you're great.
It's so beautiful to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Tony and I would love to hear from you. What's the single biggest insight that you're taking away from today's episode? And more importantly, what's the biggest action you're going to take as a result of all of this goodness? Now, as always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at marieforleo.com, so go there and leave a comment now. Did you like this video? If so, subscribe to our channel, and I would be so appreciative, especially for this one, if you shared it with all your friends. And if you want even more awesome resources to create a business and life that you love, plus some personal insights from me that I only get to talk about in email, come on over to marieforleo.com and make sure you sign up for email updates. Stay on your game and keep going for your dreams, because the world really needs that special gift that only you have. Thank you so much.
For the last, I guess, 9 months or so, since the economy took its giant collapse all over the world in different areas financially, I've been meeting people that are trying to figure out what to do financially. And I've watched so many people in business who are trying to figure out what to do. Their customers are responding in a different way. They're hanging on to their money, and they're concerned. And so I thought, you know, the traditional approaches to business are not making a difference. What I'm best at is modeling. You know, I've always, when I wanted to figure something out, I go to people that are the best in that area and figure out what they're doing and teach myself how to do that, and then teach others to do the same once I've proven it's worked with myself. I said, I want to find the best of the best, and I've been really fortunate over the last, as I say, probably 7, 8, 9 months to have spent some time interviewing and getting to know and becoming good friends with many of the top people in the internet marketing. I mean, people that they're not the likely people you normally look at. I look at them as the new money masters. You know, they're guys that, you know, they didn't have a traditional education, and ladies that didn't, but they found a way to add value. So whether you're looking for, you know, opportunity to figure out how to have a second income stream, or you have some form of business you're considering being in or you're in and you want to learn some tools, I thought I'm going to create some great products for this, but I thought I'd just send you out first a neat little interview that I did with them. These guys called me up and said, can we come by? I'd love to chat with you. I said, well, we're going to chat. Let's put it on film. So we just knocked around, and what they wanted to ask me was, look, we spent enough time with you. We know you know how to get people to take action. I said, well, come on over and let me kind of get inside your heads a little bit. Let me see why you follow through. Why do so many people say they're going to do something and then never follow through? And a few people do something inside their head and heart that gets them to follow through. So I just thought you might enjoy this conversation we've had. It's with Frank Kern and John Reese, two of the best in this industry. And I think you'll find it interesting. Maybe you'll be triggered a little bit to think about what will get you to follow through too. So this is my little gift to you. I hope you enjoy.
We got the dial.
Frank!
Tony, what's up?
Good thing, man. How about you?
I'm good. Listen, we've got a serious issue that I think is affecting our market, and we need your help. We actually don't know if we can solve this problem, but we think that you can. So we want to barge in today. We're kind of riding around anyway. I know you're shooting and stuff, but if you got a couple minutes so we can pop by, that sure would be helpful.
Okay, well, I'm honored if you help me. Come on over. We're 14.
Okay. See you, man.
Bye. The 14, John. Bye-bye.
See ya.
So why are we in a hotel anyways?
They use this place a lot to shoot stuff because it's got a really nice background.
Oh, so
really nice outdoor
filming
stuff.
different guests and interviews and TV commercials? Hey man, how's it going?
Come on in.
All right, thank you.
Hey,
Sorry. What's up?
How you doing, man?
What's all this?
Doing a little leadership filming, man.
That's awesome.
Good to see you.
All right, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, you good. Well, come on in. I'm curious what this major problem is that you haven't seen me right away about. This sounds like a setup to me, man.
It's a setup, yeah. I told John it was an intervention about his glue sniffing problem.
Come over and sit on my lap.
Yeah, exactly. So we were doing some talking, and the big problem in our industry, we think, is a bit of a mystery. No one has the exact answer. We were actually talking about trying to figure it out, that so many people in our market get these courses that him and I both, for our own respective businesses, spend hours and hours of time recording these building these education products, these training products to show people how to grow a business or build a business. But there's this large segment of our customers in our market that we're in that really don't get results. They don't do anything, or they're just, for whatever reason, it's not for them. It's just, we were just talking about how great it would be if there were just, so many more success stories, right?
Like if everyone who actually bought stuff, not necessarily just our stuff, but all of the stuff within our community, if the people who bought it, if everyone who bought it just actually used it, and just followed the directions and followed through, how amazing that would be, like what we would accomplish as a community as a whole if that happened. So our challenge is, what needs to happen, what kind of shifts need to happen to get people to follow through, to get people to actually use the products?
You're talking about the same mystery that people have of, why does somebody, get that fat where they're out of control and they hate themselves, but then they go have another piece of chocolate? Or, why does the person who's the doctor just told them they have cancer, lung cancer, and said you've got to stop smoking, and some studies show 70% of people keep on smoking. So you're not talking about a minor issue here, right? It's part of life. But there is an answer because there are people that do follow through, and there are people that never did before, and then they never follow through in their life, and now finally they break through. And that's what I try to focus on, is what those people do.
In my case, in the business world, I look at people like you, people like Dan Kennedy.
Yep.
What do these guys do? Okay, I'm just going to do that to the best of my ability. And sure, it's like, well, oh no, I can't write copy as well as Dan Kennedy. I don't have as much energy and drive as Tony Robbins. Well,
but you didn't start
what?
You didn't start out
as
Frank Kern. You didn't start out as why? You started out trying to make how much? Come on.
$300.
Yeah,
a week.
A week.
$300.
Right?
Yeah.
And you failed at that in the beginning, didn't you?
I failed pretty miserably. Yes. But it was effortless to fail. I was it's just like natural. Yeah.
But truthfully, you went from $300 to, I remember you said your first time you believed, if I remember, was when you made like $2,500 in like 4 or 5
days when I was on vacation.
While you were on vacation.
That was when the true internet marketing dream was realized. Because I sold a downloadable product and I wasn't even there. I didn't have to ship anything. I was like, oh my God. this is so great, $2,500. And to me, that was just a gazillion, because my win, I think, was like $400 or something.
And when you told me that story before, and you just do it again, and you get so you big grin on your face, you get more excitement on your face than when you talk about doing 18, than when you talked about doing the 18 million, which I know you're proud as hell of, and you didn't get all the money, but you made 18 million bucks for somebody in 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Well, look at your face. It's like, no one here's excited as 2,500 bucks in 5 days, baby.
The $2,500 is just as, there's no difference.
No, there's even more, because there was a moment when you recognized what was possible, but you didn't recognize it until you actually experienced it, but you only experienced it because you had to. Right. You had to keep going until you found it, just like you did. You had to keep going until you found it.
It's like the validation that the fear doesn't have to matter anymore, that you don't, there is no other, that, not having the plan B and knowing that you're going down the one path towards what you want.
Yeah.
It's the validation in your brain that, hey, this works. It may not work yet on the level I want it to, but it works. I've just proven it to myself.
Right.
And for that, I win. It's game over. I've already won.
Yeah.
Because I've proven it to myself.
Right.
So it validates everything in my mind that I'm going to do now just at a higher level.
Right.
I'm doing more of it. That's it.
Right. You just now leverage it. You now just stack it. So what do these people need to get started? Why aren't they starting? We all know the answer is fear. But the difference with you guys or me or anybody who's followed through is we're more afraid of what life would be like if we don't follow through than the person who's willing to settle for what they got and kind of hope it'll change and maybe purchase something for the moment and then not follow through with it. It's almost like people, overachievers, have a little more fear. They're a little more afraid of missing out. They're afraid of not being there, or they got a strong enough reason to follow through. So I'd say if you're looking at home, you want to give somebody some value, go, where do I start? I'm sick of this. That's a damn good place. That's probably where they bought the product in the first place, but now they're
escape
not.
from that for just a minute.
What's that?
They bought the product to escape from that state.
Just for a moment.
Yeah.
So, because guess what? What makes people excited is progress. You don't have to be at the goal yet to feel alive again. You have to make progress. And the first step to progress is make a decision and buying the product. But then they don't do the second step, which is open the damn thing up.
I think another powerful distinction that you're hitting on here is the fact that a lot of people that have breakthroughs in their lives, like including Frank and I both in different, success stories, situations, whatever you want to call them, is that, people typically hit rock bottom before that must is a reality.
You're right.
So in thinking of that, because a lot of things as well, like we hear in marketing, like if you had a gun to your head right now and you had to make money in the next, 48 hours, what would you do? And that really resonates with people. But so I just wanted to bring this into the conversation because I think a big part of the market of all these people aren't people that have their backs completely against the wall yet.
That's right.
Okay, so they're not in a must situation yet. They're in a desire situation where they're okay in their lives. They do have big dreams and ambitions. They do want greater things, but it's not pushing them yet to the point where they will do what it takes
to master something.
So what do you think? How do people go from not having their backs against the wall when they have no choice to say, I'm totally sick of this, to conditioning their minds to go from their situation where they are, which may be okay, to getting something greater?
Well, think about this. What pisses you off and what excites you is all relative. $300 a week, no, $2,500 excites him more, that memory to this day, than even the $1 million, he did in his first 24-hour version, right? Or you breaking the 4 minute mile, $1 million. That must have been out of your mind. Tell me about that for a second. What did that feel like? You make $1 million in 24 hours. Nobody in history of the internet's done it.
Euphoria.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
What was your?
It wasn't even about the money.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It wasn't really about the money.
No, it wasn't.
I wasn't thinking like, oh, that's how many cars I can buy.
No.
It just wasn't. It was just breaking through like another barrier of progress.
So at that point, it wasn't about your back to your wall. At that point, what it was really
It was
about...
a further point for my fear, is what it really was.
Further point for your fear, and for some people, and I think in some cases, it's also a recognition of who I am and what I'm capable of. So for somebody whose life is already great, this is about, what if I could take on another skill that could create more freedom for my life? And just saying, I'm not going to go out and try and do it all perfectly right now. What I'm going to do for the next 8 weeks, I'm going to create a little ritual. I'm going to do one thing a day to condition my mind, right? So I get strong, so I follow through. I'm going to read something. I'm going to listen to something. I'm going to immerse myself. I'm going to go for an intense jog, or I'm going to go lift weights, but I'm going to do it consciously to get in a state where I'm going to follow through. That's number one, because people follow through when they're in state. Second, I'm going to get clear about why this is a must for me. It's not because my back's against the wall, but because I want to master an area of life that could create some freedom. I'm not going to master it overnight, but I got the system, I got the plan. I'm going to do one thing a day. I'm going to work on one subject a week. This week's going to be about figuring out what the right product or industry is. Next week's going to be basics of building traffic. And each week I'm going to make a little progress, and I'm going to get to a goal, whatever that is. I'm going to make $1,000, my $300 in a week. I'm going to get to my $2,500. That first $2,500 is the most excited.
Unbelievable.
The first $300. I remember
It's life-changing, too.
It is the most life-changing. I remember I was supposed to be a truck driver, making $24,000 a year because I'd be making the most anybody in my family had ever made.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, very, very well. Thank God I'm not driving a truck, right?
I think you could drive the truck.
I figured out I could pull it with my finger, man. I could do it with my teeth. I could pull it with my teeth, right? 36 grand a year was the goal. If I could make 3 grand in a month. When I did that, I was out of my mind. And then it was like, could I make 10 grand a month? Then it was 10 grand in a day, then 100 grand a day. Then could I make $1 million in a day? I had a day where I made $400 million in a day. The stock value of the company I took public, my personal stock.
But it was probably after I did it, though, so it doesn't really count. I'm just joking with you.
You're right.
People don't remember who's first, Tony. 400 million.
Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah,
I'm not saying
that's amazing, though.
I'm not saying
of course.
because they told me when I was on stage, I had this audience of about 15,000 people at the Continental Center. It was during the stretch break. I was doing what I loved, rocking the house. Everybody's going crazy. And they go, the stock's worth $400 million right now. I was like, wow, that's cool. It's like, okay, that's, no one sounds stupid. It's like, what's next? And I went right back to what I loved. Once you break through, then it just becomes a game. The people that are getting your products have not yet broken through in most cases. The breakthrough happens by conditioning your mind every day, by feeding it a role model or a story. It's putting yourself in a peak state where you follow through by getting physically strong. It's creating a little ritual of doing a little bit each day, and then you get momentum. But the most important thing of all is what we started out with. Why?
Absolutely.
Why is it a must for you? It doesn't have to be you're against the wall, but it has to be something you're hungry for, because the only difference in people is hunger. And if you're not hungry, get around people that are hungry and something will hit you. You watch a conversation, you get around people that are doing better, and all of a sudden you start going, my life sucks. I remember I went to a guy in L.A., he's one of the most multi-billionaire guy, I'll never forget, and I lived in the Del Mar Castle, and I was really proud. That was like the symbol of me having taken myself from being poor to providing for my family this great place. It's built from castles in Europe overlooking the ocean, not far from you. And I went to this guy's house, he's a billionaire, he took me down to his wine cellar, I don't even drink wine. Went through this whole thing. At the end of the night, I was depressed. I lived in the Del Mar tenement, as far as I was concerned. I really was. I was like, I lived in a crappy place, and all my standards changed. All of a sudden, I wasn't willing to settle for living there. All of a sudden, my back was to the wall in a different way, because as a man, I knew I was capable of more. So people can change their standard by getting around where it's better. People can change their standard by getting associated with what's true, like the bills they got to solve, the problems they got to do it. Or they can do it because they're excited, because it's something new they want to take on. Everyone's different. But they got to find the why, and they got to come up with some daily rituals to get them going, and just do a step at a time. That's where you get momentum.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
So, think about it. What's the holy grail between somebody taking action or not? It's one word: certainty. When somebody is absolutely certain, the common word is believe, right? But, you can believe at a general level, or you can believe with certain. When you're absolutely certain that if I do this, it's going to get that result, and that result's going to change my life, you'll do it. When you think it absolutely is not going to work, you're never going to do it. The middle no man's land of maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, that's the piece that kills people, right? So if it's a must for you, you got to make it work, right? In our case, right? That's an example. If it's not a must for you and you're not sure, you don't know what to do. So years ago, I'd look around and say, okay, how do people get themselves to follow through that haven't been following through? What's the difference? And I started interviewing hundreds of people, literally, and eventually thousands, because I had thousands of my events. So I'd ask the group to give me their feedback. And I came up with this model. It's like the holy grail of belief, or the holy grail of momentum. It's like the difference between what makes the rich get richer and the poor get poor, right? And the difference we all know is mindset, but like, how's that built? So this is what I did. I created stupid little 4 little boxes, and I'll scribble it here for you. You think about the first thing that determines whether you can do something or not, and I put that in this first box at the top here on the left side. It's potential. Like, what's the potential of a human being? Like, when you guys started, you proved something no one had done in history. You ran the 4-minute mile, right? For God only knows how many centuries, they're trying to run a 4-minute mile. Roger Bannister does it. How did he do it? Do you remember? You did it in this industry, right? You made $1 million in a day. No one had ever done that in history, right? After you did it, a bunch of other guys were doing it because it became possible. Roger Bannister didn't just go physically practice. He made a shift in his head. He practiced in his head because he could never achieve it physically, so he had to change in his head first so that the result became certain enough he believed it, and then his body got him through. After Roger Bannister ran that 4-minute mile, within 2 years, 37 people ran a 4-minute mile. when no one in history had ever done it. Now, here's how it works. The potential for anybody getting your product is extraordinary. They can do what you've done as much, more or less. They can do whatever they want to do. The potential's there. The market's proven that. Whether or not they tap into potential has a lot to do with what action they take, which is the question you came to me with, right? Like, God, they all have potential, but they're not taking action. And we all know that the action they take is going to determine the results they get. That's pretty obvious. So most people have a belief about what their real potential is no matter what you tell them. And that affects how much action they take. And of course that affects the result. And then ironically, that result reinforces their belief. And then their belief affects it. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a person has unlimited potential, we all agree. But they take little action, little results. Why? Because they have to start with a problem with their belief. They don't believe it's really going to happen for me. Maybe for Frank Kearns because he's got the cool hair and stuff, or maybe it's for you because you're so driven, but it's not me. Maybe Tony Robbins because he's a freak, got these big teeth. Whatever their thought process is, right? They got this thing, right? But what happens is, if you believe that there's very little potential, how much action are you going to take? Nothing, little. And when you take little potential with a little action, what kind of results do you get? Lousy little results. And when you get little results, what does that do to your belief? You go, see, I told you this was a waste of time, told you this wouldn't work. And then what happens? You tap even less potential. You take even less action. You get even worse results, and your belief gets even weaker. And this sucker feeds on itself until you are in a downward spiral.
It's poisonous.
It's poisonous and it's self-fulfilling. Now, what if something could happen that could come along and fill you with a sense of absolute certainty? Not like I believe, but where you know. In you guys' case, mine as well, we knew because we had to. Because we burned the boats. There was no other option. We had to find a way. We weren't going to live that way. We all did it in different ways and for different reasons, but in essence, that was it. If you get yourself in a state of certainty that this is going to work, I'm going to find a way, and if this doesn't work, I will make the way, then you tap a lot more potential. And when you're certain in your potential, you take massive action. When you take massive action, you really believe in something, you get great results. When you get great results, your brain goes, see, I told you I was a stud. I told you this thing would work out. Now you're even stronger. You tap more potential, take greater action, greater results. That's how you went from $300 in a week to $2,500 in 5 days to $100,000 in a month to $1 million in a day. Same thing with you. And we get momentum. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Now some people go out and they go, well, I'm going to take a bunch of action. All right, I'm going to open this product. I'm going to try it. And they'll say to you, I even did it. But it's like a salesman who goes and knocks on the door, and he knocks on 100 doors and says,
you don't want one of these, do you?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And even if he doesn't say it verbally, his face says it because he doesn't believe it's going to work. So his voice, his body, the execution is so weak. Maybe if he talks to 100 people, somebody's going to buy out of pity. They don't want his kids to starve, right? But he's not going to get the result. So the core difference in people is how do you produce certainty when the world isn't giving it to you? You go out and you try. In your case, you're $100,000 in debt and nothing's working. How do you keep yourself going? The way you did it, the way I did it, the way you're doing it, we may not have done it consciously, is we didn't change our potential. That was there. And it wasn't even taking more action. Taking more action where belief is not going to work, it's not going to change anything. We got results in our head that made us feel certain as if it had already happened. True or false for you?
True.
Right? So give me an example so people know I'm not just making this crap up.
Well, I mean, just like when I had nothing, I already knew I was driving like Ferraris and Porsches and stuff because I always wanted those cars. I already knew I was going to have them. It was inevitable.
Right.
I inevitably, that was just my inevitable outcome.
But how did you do that? Did you have a ritual? Did you think about it regularly? Was it one time you thought about it, or was it something you had an obsession towards?
I had an obsession towards it. I mean, I used to work at a video store, which is the last job I ever had in my life.
Thank God.
And I used to go to work almost every day, and I used to bring 2 magazines with me to read on my breaks. Entrepreneur magazine, just to read about business and everything else, and read about what other people are doing, look for role models. And I used to carry an auto trader with me. And I used to look at Porsches that were for sale.
Yeah.
And people always used to ask me, what are you doing with that Auto Trader magazine? I'm like, well, I'm just picking out the Porsche that I'm going to buy.
Right. Which probably got you a lot of crap.
I did. People made fun of me. I actually had a boss at that job tell me, you really shouldn't do that to yourself, John, because it's very, very likely that is never going to happen. That it's very likely that you're never going to have that car.
Yeah.
That's the kind of belief he was trying to put in my head. And I was like, no, you don't realize that it's inevitable that I will drive here sometime in the near future with that car when I'm not working for you and drop movies off for you to put back on the shelf. And that actually happened. And it was one of the most
Oh, you're
fulfilling
kidding.
days of my entire life. And the great thing was, when I pulled up in this car, I was, I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
A car that most mid-20s.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Porsche 911 Turbo. It was a convertible and everything. It was a beautiful car. It was what I always dreamed of having. But for a few years, I'd always circle the ads of which ones I was going to buy. Well, when I finally got it and I pulled up at the store, I had all these people. Some people that were still working at the $7 an hour job were there years after I left. And I'll never forget this, even the boss and stuff, and the reaction of the people was like, wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Is that your dad's car? And all I said to them was, not exactly.
Good for
And
you.
I just smiled and just left. But it was, it's the weirdest thing, but I just knew it was going to happen.
But you knew it because
I
you
conditioned myself
you,
to.
you did it over and over again.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I was not a popular kid, but I was passionate and intense, and I'll never forget. Some people would give, some particular girls gave me some crap, and a guy too. And I wrote in their journals or their annual yearbook at the end, I wrote, someday, I said, you treated me like hell. Someday I'll be rich and famous, and you'll be an effing truck driver. And you'll be sitting there, I'll be with with this beautiful woman of my life, rich, and you'll be watching me on television thinking, you wish you would have treated me better. I actually wrote this shit in people's annuals because I went to a 10-year high school reunion when people showed me this stuff.
Great.
But it's like, I burned the bridges, baby. I was like, this is how it's going to be. So I'll give you a perfect example of this. They did studies, many have been done at this element, where they want to say, how much does the mind affect performance? So take basketball. I've worked with a lot of NBA players and turned them around, and one of the problems many of them have is they'll choke on the free throw line. Well, everybody knows in that case, if you normally shoot really well and now you're not, something's interfering, something's getting in front of your state, some uncertainty, right? Obviously. So they take a group and say, we're going to make them better. How do you make somebody better who's got this mental block? So they take a group of guys and they're going to do free throws, and they do one group where they just practice for 6 weeks. Totally intense practice, and I forget the number of free throws, but they got to do this many free throws every day. Take a second group, and they have them not practice at all. Obvious. And they take a third group and they don't let them touch a basketball. All they do is have them practice in their mind, but the key is, it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice makes perfect, as corny as that sounds. So these guys see themselves making the shot every single time, conditioning their mind and body that it's perfect every time. They're not interrupted by a reality that would screw with them. So at the end of 6 weeks, they tally it up, and now they give them a test to see who has the highest free throw percentage, success. What do you guess it's going to be? Well, the obvious person says, obviously, it's not the guys that didn't practice, but which one is it, the mind, or is it the ones that actually practice?
I'm assuming the mind.
Yeah, you would assume it because it's true.
Right.
You intuitively know the truth, that practicing's not enough. It's getting yourself so certain so many times that now when you go to do it, there's no hesitancy, and you execute. It's having that absolute certainty that makes you tap your full potential, take massive action, get massive results, be reinforced to have even stronger belief. This is what makes somebody a star at anything.
It's like Jack Nicklaus, the golfer.
Yes.
He visualized every shot and where it was going, landing right where he wanted it before he ever hit it.
Every single time. And what do most
Every
golfers
single
do?
time. They just take a practice swing and they kind of hope for the best and point in the right direction and hit it.
And some of them, if they've had some bad hits, what are they really focusing on? What I don't want to do.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing here. So I'll show you a little stupid little physical technique for this. So stand up for a second. You guys going to do this? The camera show? So try this for a second. So just put your feet together, and then put your right index finger straight out in front of you like this. Okay? And all I want you to do is I want you to just turn clockwise comfortably as far as you normally turn. Just notice where you naturally stop. Go ahead and turn clockwise. People at home can do this too. Keep your feet straight. Notice where you stop. Come back around to me. Back around to me.
Pretty good.
Okay, good. Yeah, you're really good at this, right? Drop your hand. Now let's do something really simple. Close your eyes. And you don't have to visualize, just feel. I want you to imagine your finger coming back up again. And this time, see and feel it coming up. Don't actually make it happen, but feel like it's happening. Imagine in your mind that you're actually doing it. You're seeing it, you're feeling it. And then make it like a game where you turn twice as far this time. Like you're a little kid, somebody measures you and you go, I'm taller, come on, measure me this week. And that desire to do a little further. And then in your mind, do it again. Your feet are straight together, and in your mind, feel your finger coming up, see it coming up, and imagine going 3 times as far this time. And then one more time, bring your finger up, and you're like an owl. Your feet are straight, and you turn all the way around, and it comes all the way around to the front. See it and feel it and enjoy it each time like it's a game, like you can't wait to go further. And you know you do, every time. And when you can feel that, it feels good, then open your eyes. And now put your finger straight in front of you and turn as far as you can comfortably and see what happens this time. Go.
Take one back.
Now notice, I don't know if the camera's got it, but you don't have to ask the camera. You can ask yourselves. Come back around. Did you go further this time, yes or no?
A lot further.
A lot further.
50% further.
50% further. How much further for you?
About the same.
Yeah. The average person will go 25% further. Now here's the question.
We're superior. We're superior.
There you go.
Your right finger pointer.
Thank God. So, did you have the potential to turn as far as you did the second time, the first time?
Yes.
Why didn't you?
I didn't believe it, I guess.
We have beliefs about stuff we don't even know we have beliefs. You have an unconscious belief about how far you can turn comfortably.
The first time I did it, when I pointed straight back,
Yeah.
I thought I probably shouldn't even go that far, like it was going to hurt me, or that
Yeah.
I wasn't capable of going any farther. It's like,
And how much further did you go this time? And the camera knows.
Put it over there,
That's
right
exactly
over there.
right. Now here's the difference. The potential was there the first time, and you took action, and you got a result. But it was 50% less than what you did later on, and the only difference is they changed your belief. How did I change your belief? We didn't work harder on your potential. We didn't take more action. I got you to see the result in advance. I got to see it vividly 2 or 3 times. That's all. I'm going further, and your brain went, oh, I know what to do. Boom, it went there. Isn't that what you did by looking at your cars every single day and envisioning it? Isn't that what you did when you created whatever the vision was? It was $300, $2,500, $1 million in a day?
Yeah,
That's what's missing for these people. They're not getting that execution is everything, but it doesn't happen if you don't get the psychology set of a state of total certainty. And you just change that 50% in 3 minutes worth of visualization. And visualization is only one technique.
Because I was like losing my balance with my eyes closed, but I was kind of like lopsided, so I got one good visualization, and the rest of the time I was like, I sure hope I don't fall down on camera with my eyes closed. It's going to look really dumb to do it. So you don't even have to be good at visualization. You can still get the improvement.
So I want you to get, you ask the question, what is that difference in people? This changes people's certainty. People are uncertain they're going to succeed. They want it, but they're afraid. The best way to deal with a fear is get a big enough reason that makes you have to succeed, or condition yourself where you see it and feel it so often that you're certain that you just do it. That's all it really takes.
That's awesome. You know, this worked. I was thinking this while you were talking about going to the.
Sit down so we can hear this, and we'll go.
You were talking about working in the video store and looking at the Porsches and stuff. I used to drive around in my car, doing the cold calling with the credit card machines. And one way that I would avoid cold calling, the pain of like cold calling and knocking on doors and everything, would be to listen to your stuff and listen to Jim Rohn's stuff. And
Wow.
just drive around, no particular destination, just to listen to it. And strangely, I still like to drive around. I prefer to listen to that stuff in the car for some
Right.
reason.
It's because it's where you got imprinted.
I guess. I mean, it's like, well, I'll just drive up and down the coast and check out the ocean.
Yeah.
So I would drive around, and I would envision myself holding those types of seminars,
Wow.
and teaching people that kind of stuff. And 3 weeks ago, I was teaching a seminar in San Diego, and I was talking about beliefs and envisioning things, and I had to stop. And I shared with the audience, I was like, you're not going to believe this, but I actually used to envision this very moment.
Wow.
I'm talking to you right now. So
Wow.
it really, really works.
Wow.
Definitely works. Makes a difference, I'd say.
I'll tell you what, I worked with Andre Agassi in 1993, I think it was. He'd been #1. He dropped to 32nd in the world. And he was literally ready to quit with no exaggeration. His father was managing him, and he was so angry with his life. And he went through some, I think, wrist surgery at the time, and he's working on his swing. And he was dating Brooke Shields at that point. They weren't married, and not his current marriage, obviously. And so she said, you got to come see Tony. She goes, I don't need motivation. He goes, he's not motivation, man. He's strategy. He'll show you how to make that shift in your head. So he comes. I work with a guy. In the beginning, he's saying, do your magic stuff. Like, oh, yeah, great, thank you. And I said, tell me, you've ever hit a tennis ball perfectly. And I'm trying to get him in the zone to remember that time, like you visioned, where he was perfect at it. He goes, of course I have. And I get him vision over and over again. And finally, he's in the zone. He's feeling that again, right? He's seeing it, and he's feeling certain, and the swing is going perfect. And I said, how's that feel? He goes, it feels perfect. I said, but are you thinking about the swing? You're not thinking about the swing. You're not thinking about how to do it. You're just seeing the result you want so vividly that it's there. So all he did was train him how to go in that state over and over again. He won the next weekend. The second weekend he came in second. Within 6 months he was #1 in the world again. And he gave me unbelievable credit. But all it was conditioning the mind. You did it with tape, so did I. We were just talking about this earlier, Pam and I. I used to go when I was 17 years old down in downtown Los Angeles, this place called Night Education, K-N-I-G-H-T, like in the night. And I'd save up all my money, work as a janitor, and I'd get these tapes and listen to these things over and over and over again. I went there for years, and I didn't have enough money, and I leveraged everything I had, but I knew how to train my mind. It's the one thing I knew how to do. This man's name was Mario. I saw him in his 80s, You know, he obviously knows how my life turned out and was very proud of the role he played in that process. He used to tell people the story. This guy's the real thing. He didn't just start out this way. This is how Tony did it. He listened to these tapes. He conditioned himself, right? This is the real stuff. He passed away a few years ago. I'm calling his house, and he passed away, and his daughter was there, and she wanted to share with me that how I touched his life and so forth. But the best thing was, I thought, you know what? I want to get those tapes. I want to get that stuff that conditioned. You know, I want to go back to that moment like you did of, you know, that moment was visualizing, now I'm living it. And she said, he left all this in his will to you. So I have all these tapes now that are from the time when I originally went through, and like I'd go to sleep and I had these sleep tapes that conditioned my mind to believe that I could succeed even when I was sleeping, or to build energy in my body. And anybody who wants to succeed has got to know it doesn't just happen. You can buy a product, but you also, with that product, have got to condition yourself. You got to make it a must, and you got to get a ritual. And if you do it, whatever you used to dream about you thought was so huge, you'll just live it. You'll live it like you lived this yesterday, like we're all living the life that we envisioned. Because we had to, and because we played this game with our head. We got the belief to be real by seeing it enough times and feeling it enough times till our brain believed it, and then it made it happen.
Which raised the potential, which made us take more action, which got us better results, which raised our beliefs again.
That's right. And then that's why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So instead of bitching about it, change it. And this is how you change
It's like
it.
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Completely.
It's pretty easy to change. Just that one simple exercise was amazing. I'm still like, holy crap! You know, I wonder what else I can do now.
But look what most people do. Most people do the opposite of that, right? They get the product, or they think about doing it, and what do they envision?
It's not working.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the excuses. that
So they envision it not working. As soon as they envision it not working, they feel uncertain. As soon as they feel uncertain, how much potential is that? Little, if anything. And so they send back your product, and they didn't listen to the damn thing. You know? And guess what? What does that do, by the way? They make that as another lousy result in their life. I didn't even follow through on that, and they believe even less. This process is the Holy Grail. It's where the whole game changes, and anybody can do it, and they can do it in a few minutes. And if they do it a few minutes each day, then they get a different life. They do it a few minutes one time, their life changes for the day. We're defined by our rituals. Everybody's got rituals, certain things they do every day. And what we have in common, and anybody that I know of who has a life that they're living that was once a vision, is we saw it again and again and again, even when it didn't work, even when you lost 100 grand, even when I'm working as a janitor. There's something we would not give up on. And if somebody watching wants to change their life, they got to decide what they won't give up on, and then put themselves in the state of momentum by a couple little rituals. That's all it takes.
And I think especially when it comes to anything related to making money, like making money products or promises or courses, people are so inundated with scams and all this garbage, true garbage, that, you know, their natural thinking is that they're so skeptical. It's like they fall into the conditioning of, well, if anything's ever going to work, that thing has to prove it to me before I believe anything. So when they go to approach the thing to make more money with, they're like, well, I'm starting at zero, and this thing has to prove to me that it has any potential at all before I believe that it will. Don't you agree with that's the case?
Unfortunately, it's the case, but here's the truth. When somebody says to me, in my business even more, because a lot of people think I'm a motivator. I hate that term. That's never been what I've done. I do believe in energy, and I'm passionate. You know, they see 10,000 people in the room rocking, they go, oh, he's motivating them. I believe in peak state. You get a top athlete, you get in a concert, and you get in state, right? The problem is, to defend themselves so they won't be disappointed again, they lower their expectations. So someone will say to me, well, I'm skeptical, or I'm pessimistic, and my response to them is, no, man, you're gutless. It takes no guts to be skeptical. You don't have to have any capacity to be a critic. And now with the web, you don't even have to own that you're the one being the critic. You can burn somebody and, you know, anonymously, right? I said, you know what? It takes guts to believe. And if you think something's going to do it for you without you putting your guts on the line, you might as well forget it right now. So this idea that I'm skeptical or they got to prove it to me, it's the biggest lie. What that really is your fear talking. You're so scared of failing, you don't even want to get your hopes up. And if you don't get your hopes up, you might say, well, what if they get their hopes up and somebody gets disappointed? How many disappointments have we experienced in our business careers and in our lives? The difference is some people take disappointment and let it destroy them. Other people take disappointment and let it drive them. And you get to choose. Are you going to turn this thing into why it didn't work and a bunch of stories and excuses, or are you going to take this thing that didn't work and figure out what are you going to do to make it work? And it may not happen the first time, the second time, the third time, but the people that are relentless find the way. And if the common denominator in all these guys that are kind of our friends or family, money masters, the new money masters is they all did it with will. Nobody here inherited this stuff. Everybody figured it out. And keep figuring it out. And it's going to keep changing. And you say, you know what, 1% of 99% of the money being made is being made by 1% of the people, because only 1% of the people will condition their mind and condition their body and follow through some daily rituals. The rest will tell a story about why it didn't work, how it wasn't their fault. And you got two things in life. You got results or you got a story.
And too many people think that 1% is somehow entitled to it, and they're not. Which is, it's just all in the head.
It's all in the head.
Belief.
It's all in the head. Which can be changed with some conditioning. Basic conditioning.
You just proved it.
Yeah.
To us.
That's fun. That's why I made Get the Edge and Personal Powers, because I understood that from the very beginning. Originally it was 30 days, and years later people would say, I've heard all the great results and everything else, man, but I don't have 30 days, and I'd be behind the glass, focus group, watching these people want to shake them, like, you don't have 30 days to change your life, I thought, okay, I'll make it 7 days. Just one, because after 7 days you get momentum. I mean, think about it. When do people's lives change? In a moment. It doesn't change in 10 years. Your life may suck for 10 years, but there's one moment when your life changes, the moment you decided. When you said, no more, and I'm doing it, and you kicked yourself in the ass, and you made yourself go do something, right? When you finally said, enough, no more, I quit, or let's begin, or I love you, there's a moment when somebody's life changes. And that can be gotten in a couple of days. So people watching don't have to wait until they've mastered everything. They got to get started and do what's next, and just put themselves in a state where they start making some progress.
Well, there it is. I think that's the answer that can help solve that problem with a lot of people. They'll just pay attention to it and do it.
The bottom line is, all three of us and some of the people that we consider as family that are part of this process, we've all done well, and we don't need to do this stuff. We're able to do this stuff because underneath it all, people can see in your eyes, Frank, when you talk about $2,500 you made that day, and the joy, right? Or you talking about not willing to settle, and just, I don't care what they say, they tell me I'm going to sit here and I should lower my expectations. I'm going to be driving my car in here and they're going to be delivering a video to me. There's something inside of every human being that will make it click, that'll make it so that today is not like yesterday and tomorrow will be different forever. And that process is an emotional hook. And what I hope is people watching this stuff, maybe something in here will piss them off enough or remind them of something or say there is a plan and it isn't just luck. And if I just get my big enough why and I get a little system for conditioning myself, and if I start to feel overwhelmed, I just do one next step. And I keep learning and keep moving forward, I will get there. If we accomplish that out of this conversation, then this conversation was kick-ass and fun, not just for us, but it'll be something that we'll be really proud of a long time. Whether it happens or not really has nothing to do with us, but whether or not people... I took up golf recently. I thought, I never play this game. Old man's game, never do it. But my kids play, so I want to play with them. So I go out, and I do really well. I go out on this one day, and I out-power by my instructor. I'm feeling really proud. The next day, I'm not feeling so proud. I keep putting the ball in the water again. I'm so frustrated. Put down another one. Put down another one. I don't care. I don't care what my score is. Let's do it. And finally, I was getting frustrated. He's going things like, ain't it a bitch? This is golf. And I'm going, bull. I said, you're a terrible instructor. I said, because I should at least be consistent at whatever shitty level I can achieve. I said, I know I'm not Tiger Woods, but I should be able to be consistent, and you're just telling me it's difficult. Telling me it's difficult is not helping. Tell me what to do. He said, well, actually, you're only a little bit off. I said, could have fooled me. He said, no, you're about a millimeter or two off. I said, you're joking. He said, no, watch this. He said, I didn't teach you this yet. He said, when you approach the ball like this, he said, if you change the angle that you're attacking this just 1 or 2 millimeters, in the very beginning, do you see how that changes the arc? This one, instead of being on the green, by 1 millimeter, now you're in the water. 1 millimeter over here, you're in the sand. And he said, and also you're hitting the ground by 1 millimeter sometimes. You're not stroking it, just 1 millimeter. I thought, what a great belief system that when all hell's breaking loose and nothing's working, that you're only 1 millimeter off. Because most people think it's impossible, so they give up. Isn't that true? And in real life, it's true. So 2 days later, I'm going to see one of my clients. I do a lot of coaching, and I have a man who's the top plastic surgeon in the world. He's going through some tough times in aspects of his life. But this is a guy that gets paid by Sultan of Brunei $1 million to fly over and do 3 people's faces. He is the #1 plastic surgeon in the world. He can make anyone who's ugly look spectacularly beautiful. He showed me pictures of a woman who's 84 years old. He made her look 40 and gorgeous, no exaggeration. But you know what? I'm waiting for him in his office, and he's still in surgery. So he's got a new book he's creating to teach other surgeons around the world. And I'm going through, and it's got pictures of, the top 100 supposedly most beautiful women in the world's faces. And then men. I wasn't paying attention to that one. I just kept turning the pages, right? But I noticed something. He's got all these measurements. And he has mathematically calculated what it takes to make someone look gorgeous, man or woman. And it's a few millimeters. Interesting. For example, on a woman, the distance between the top part of your lip and your nose, this little distance, the measurement of that, if you're beautiful, gorgeous, is the same size as your eye. If it's 1 millimeter more, you have an average face. If it's 2 millimeters more, you are butt ugly. Okay. The difference between butt ugly and gorgeous is 2 millimeters. He's got about a dozen of these little 1 or 2 millimeter changes he makes, and it's a different person. It is unbelievable. So a very powerful belief to leave today with would be, nothing's working, I'm 1 millimeter away. What little thing got to change, and when I do, it changes everything. Because I'm heading this direction, I make this little shift. You take that out an hour from now, a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, you have a totally different destination from that direction. But the 1 millimeter change, I'll show you one of them right now. Check this out. Stay in the state of certainty. Some of you lost it. Intensify it, whatever it takes. Intensify. Make your move. Come on. Make your move. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Now feel that in your body. Don't let go of it. Now watch. Here's the difference between being certain and being uncertain. Did you see that? Certain, uncertain. See if you can find that little spot between the two, where you drop just a little bit of your chest, and you feel it drop, and come back up, and drop it. How many can feel that difference between where you really feel it, now intensify it, and where you dropped it? Is it a tiny difference, yes or no? Yes or no? Now, could you condition yourself to feel great in this state? Yes or no? So what I want you to do is give yourself that opportunity. So the way we're going to do is very simple. We're going to go in a peak state. And then we're going to train ourselves. Because guess what? If you're in this state of certainty, and all hell's breaking loose in your life, people can't figure out, you go, move, I'll handle it. People go, he's so lucky, he's so confident. No. Here's what I've created for my life, and anyone I know has succeeded. I'm a 17-year-old kid from Azusa, California, with no real education other than self-education, with no background, with parents that did their best, all of them, with no money, but I did one thing. I loved people, and I had an enormous demand I made upon myself, and I sculpted my mind and my emotions to get me to do whatever it would take to achieve and to contribute. But to do that, I did it by using my body and changing my focus. I did it by putting myself in a peak physiology and using what I call incantations. Can you train yourself to believe something, yes or no? Absolutely. How many of you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland or Disney World, and while you're there made the fatal mistake of going to a ride called It's a Small World After All? What happens for about a week after you're out of that damn place? You're still singing this thing in your head in 24 languages, right? Well, let me tell you something. How many of you have things when you want to go achieve them and this part of your voice goes, oh, it's not going to happen, or forget it? How many got a voice that sometimes interrupts that good pattern? Say I. And what you want to do is train a new one. So starting when I was 17, I started doing incantations, not affirmations. Affirmation, you go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. What's the problem? You haven't changed your what? Your what? Physiology. If you don't change your physiology, you won't get anything. So an incantation is not only you speak it, but you embody what you're saying with all the intensity you can. And you do it with enough repetitions that it sticks in your head. Like It's a Small World, now the conversation in your head is always the same and it gives you what you want. So you use your body and your voice. So 17 years ago I started doing things. I was working for Jim Rohn, this speaker, and I was 17 years old. I had long hair, minestrone soup, acne on my face. And I was trying to call on Bear Stearns type of people and convince them why they should go to this man's seminar and be more successful. I was driving a 1968 Volkswagen that I had earned at $40 a week as a janitor. The only way I did it was park far from the building and then go in, and I love people and I believe, but I put myself in state and I was able to influence people that were far more successful than I was at the time. I would do something that I still do backstage and have done for 23 years because I don't hope I'm going to be in a good state, I demand it. So I do an incantation using my whole body. I'd say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible alive today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their lives now. And I would do that literally driving in my Volkswagen to a meeting in LA on the freeway for 40 minutes. People are looking at me, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They're going, I know he's a serial killer, I know he is. But by the time I entered that room, when two people meet, if there's rapport, the person who's most certain will always influence the other person. And I was totally certain, and they were trying to get revved up to certainty. Do you agree with this, yes or no? I do another one because I was poor. I changed my mindset. I kept doing things, but I never got beyond it. I'd say God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence, for I'm one with God and God is everything. And I would imagine the abundance in my life, and I would feel so grateful. And a year later, I went from making $38,000 a year to making $1 million a year in 1 year. Because successful people do what failures won't. You follow me on this? You know? Let me show you in 2 seconds flat why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I call it the success cycle. Real fast. Draw yourself 4 squares, put them up on the screen here. You'll see, as I do this, take a quick look. You'll notice you've got the word potential up in the left-hand square. Up in the right-hand square is the word action. Bottom right is the word results. Bottom left is the word belief, or another word for that would be a sense of certainty. Potential, action, belief, results, and notice there's arrows in a clockwise fashion where they just keep feeding each other over and over and over again. So again, it's potential, action, results, belief, or another word for that would be certainty. Now, did you ever notice how rich people tend to get richer and poor people to get poorer? And I don't just mean rich in financial terms. I mean people that are rich emotionally. Do you ever notice how happy people tend to get happier? And depressed people tend to get more depressed? How many found this to be true? Say aye. It's because the power of momentum and what I'm about to show you. So let me show you something here. What's the potential of any human being? You tell me, quick. Unlimited. Do most people's results reflect that true potential, yes or no? No way. Why? Because most people aren't taking enough what? But is it possible to take a lot of action and still get lousy results? What if you got a salesman that works for you and they walk out and they knock on 100 doors and they say, you wouldn't want to buy anything from me, would you? Or they don't say that verbally, but they say it non-verbally. Is that going to affect their results, yes or no? So it's not enough even to take enough action, because when we believe it's not going to work or we're uncertain, does that affect how much of our potential we tap, yes or no? See, if you don't think it's going to work, you're not going to put out a bunch of your energy when you think it's going to fail. And by the way, when you're not sure, you tap a little potential. Do you take little or a lot of action? When you're not sure, when you think it's not going to work, you take massive action or little action? Now, when you take little potential with little action, what kind of results do you get? Little lousy results. And when you get lousy results, what does that do to your belief? You go, see, I told you it wasn't going to work. Told you it was a waste of time. And then, by the way, when you have less belief, how much more potential do you take? More or less? If it's possible, you tap less potential, more or less action. Less. And what happens to your results? They get even what? And now they got worse results. What does that do to your belief? And by the way, now you see the current economy. Isn't it true? Everybody out there is going, oh my God, the results are so bad, it's going to get worse in the future, so I better pull in my horns, there's less potential, so I'm not going to push as hard. I'm not going to take much action. Oh my God, I'm getting lousy results with little potential action. Oh my God, it's going to get worse. That's what creates a recession, depression, whatever you want to call it. How do you change